So meetings are not about one to many. Meetings are always about many to many, and it's about creating something that didn't exist before, making a decision about something, brainstorming a situation. It's about a moment of change. Okay, let's recap. You had a project update meeting. It was you as the boss, 3 project managers. Everybody spoke in the meeting. You asked questions. The 3 project managers did not ask questions other than clarification questions in terms of the questions they were asking were to clarify what you were asking. Okay, they didn't ask questions of each other. Okay. When you came out of the meeting, everybody went back to work. There were action items specific to projects, which were not different from the action items that were on those projects before the meeting. In other words, when you all came out of the meeting, you weren't doing anything different when you went back to your desk than you would have been doing before the meeting. Is that correct? Okay. Based on all of that, did you have a memo or did you have a meeting? Yeah, you had a memo. You had a 1-hour memo delivery. Well, this highlights the importance of having that central repository of information. So you see how when you perfect your meetings, you're perfecting your organizational process throughout. You want everybody on the team to be capturing the correct information, the same type of information, in a centralized place where everybody can access it. What's that information? Project milestones, areas of completion, hurdles and obstacles, handoff moments, so that you do not require 4 work hours, 1 hour for people, just to know where things are. That's actually 4 fewer hours of work, and nothing's changed in the interim. Well, this is a key way to hold yourself accountable to yourself. It's difficult for us to hold ourselves accountable. So there's some key questions we can ask of ourselves, some checkpoints for your meetings. Should this be a meeting or not? A very big question you ask yourself is, what changes after this meeting? Does this meeting change the status quo, and how? If everything that we would be doing after the meeting was exactly the same as before, then I urge you to question very strongly if this meeting is required, right? So that's a good example where it's still a valid meeting, but it doesn't change the status quo. So to summarize what you just said, you have a meeting about making a decision about something, you decide not to act upon it, so everything stays the same as it was. Ergo, after the meeting, work does not change. But if you had asked yourself this question beforehand, you would not have been able to answer. You would have had to say, this could change the status quo quite drastically, and that's the whole point. We need to determine if the status quo merits changing. So this is the question that's going to tell you whether you should have a meeting or not. So it's not necessarily just the yes or no. The point is asking yourself this question and examining what the answer means, and that will tell you if you should have a meeting. The key resource for the during the meeting is the tip sheet. You'll notice that all of the structure, all of the strategy, all of the operations come before and after the meeting. So look at those resources for before, preparing your game plan, meeting agenda. You've got a worksheet to determine if this is a meeting. The core resource I'm pointing you to in your workbooks for during the meeting is the tip sheets. The meeting itself is about the people. It's about the voices being heard. You go into the meeting with a lot of unknowns, known unknowns perhaps, but unknowns nonetheless, because the whole point is to create something that didn't exist before. So for in the meeting, reference the tip sheet. You've got your tips there about how to keep conversation lively, how to make sure everybody participates, how to maintain the discussion within the scope of what the meeting is, not let it get out of control, how to keep it to time, how to make sure that people are sharing and comfortable sharing. So there's a certain amount of making it a safe place for sharing. All those tips you'll find in that tip sheet. So once you get to the end of your meeting, you of course move to your resources for after the meeting, and in your workbook, you've got that template to use for sending your follow-up notes. As with all the templates, make it your own. The point is to understand the salient points. You're using that template to focus you on what are the key talking points here, and the most important part, as we've already discussed, What are the action points here? What needs to happen afterwards? How do you know later in time that those actions have actually occurred? So those are the key areas of that template in your workbook for your after the meeting action. Each meeting for you as the organizer has 4 steps. For all participants has 3 steps. The 3 steps for all participants, yourself included, are the before, during, after. As the organizer, you have the pre-step, if you will, which is determining if this is a meeting at all. Once you have determined that, you then have the before step. So those are 2 separate steps.